India is home to more than 50 million smartphone users. This makes it the second largest smartphone market in the world. The problem is that people are buying imported phones and accessories, not Indian ones, to meet our smartphone needs. About 80% of our smartphone needs are fulfilled by non-Indian companies. How do we move from this to becoming self-reliant in this sector? In this episode, we track how domestic manufacturing is being given a boost. We see how Indian manufacturers like Micromax are creating world-class products. We track the science and technology needed for this. We also look at key accessories that people purchase along with mobiles. In the next decade, will we move to high-end Indian smartphones? How is India charting an Atmanirbhar story in the competitive mobile phone sector? Internet and mobile usage in India is all set to cross the 900 million mark by 2023, with nearly two-thirds of the population estimated to have internet access and a mobile device. Smartphones will be used by over 55% of the total population by 2023. And so the Indian government has been keen to push mobile manufacturing in India. Various policies have been set in place to give this sector a boost, like the Make in India initiative, which has incentivized domestic manufacture of mobiles. Other policies have also pushed our self-sufficiency agenda. For example, the government has increased duty on fully assembled phones. This has made international giants set up manufacturing plants where phones are assembled in India. This climate has given an impetus to various Indian companies like Lava, Carbon and Micromax to push their manufacturing abilities. Founded in 1999, Micromax is the largest phone manufacturer in India. Through the 2010s, the company was a market leader in the affordable smartphone category in India. However, the company was later sidelined since it was difficult to compete with the aggressive pricing of Chinese rivals such as Xiaomi, Vivo and Oppo. However, in this time when India is pushing her self-sufficiency agenda, Micromax is planning a comeback. What might help this journey of Micromax is the Production Linked Incentive Scheme or PLI scheme launched in 2020, under which the Indian government will choose 5 local companies and help them establish large-scale mobile manufacturing by providing incentives over the next 5 years. Micromax has plans to launch at least 20 smartphones over the next 2 years. We head to their factory in Bhiwadi, Rajasthan to check out their manufacturing capacity and infrastructure. The plant is equipped with state-of-the-art advanced machinery and facilities to carry out high-end manufacturing and R&D. The company's plan is to produce affordable product for both rural and urban India. Their vision is an Indian brand for Indian consumers.
So we started Micromax with a very clear vision of democratizing the technology. We always focused on doing something which is useful to the customer, which is something like launching long battery devices which were never there. First time doing dual SIM devices in India, first time launching devices for women line in India, and many more examples. And we were always doing something which was useful for the customers.
This factory is home to all key activities of the company related to mobile phone manufacturing, product definition, road mapping, engineering and R&D. This is where the mobile phone will take shape. It will go through multiple processes, checks and tests before taking a final physical form, which will then reach all consumers. The first step is the laser marking machine. Here, a unique code is printed on the PCB or printed circuit board using a laser technique. The PCB is the soul of the smartphone, on which the digital circuits are printed. It also acts as a bed for key components such as processors, memory and wireless chipsets that are critical to the working of the device. From here, it goes for SMT or surface mount technology. Surface mount technology is a method where the electrical components are mounted directly onto the surface of a printed circuit board or PCB. The mounting is carried out by first putting adhesive pasting in the form of solder paste on the PCB and then putting in various components on this paste. These components include radio frequency receivers and transmitters, processors, chips or integrated circuits, chipset processors, memory and SIM card holders, etc. The pasting and mounting of components is carried out on 4 PCBs simultaneously. Then comes the binder, where all the previously mounted components on the PCB are bound properly together at very high temperatures, which is about 230 degrees Celsius. After the binding is done, a laser test is carried out to detect any possible errors in mounting. After the laser inspection, it goes into the fabrication room. In the fabrication room, the PCB undergoes various changes where the software team starts work to infuse life in the phone by loading the pre-decided operating system. At the end, a visual inspection is carried out to ensure that everything is assembled according to the blueprint. Then comes the jig. In a jig, the PCB with the circuit and components mounted on it is connected to a system processor and the operating system is flashed here. Here, a second check is carried out to ensure that the unique serial number provided to the PCB previously is there. Each mount or component is checked and inspected again to make sure that the process is foolproof. Then comes the BT-FT calibration counter. This is a baseband test and frequency test calibration where they validate the values of 2G, 3G and 4G. This confirms the cellular power and data connection. Here, both the hardware and software components of the phone are calibrated. The calibration is done to ensure that the software fits in the phone perfectly. That is, the hardware and software show a smooth compatibility. If any component fails to calibrate, then a recalibration is done. Then a shield is put on the circuit and the components for extra safety. After the shield is put on, the next step is the assembly line. The assembly line is a huge hall with multiple counters. Here, assemblage of various hardware components takes place and the actual physical form of the phone comes to life.
We have always been a very strong believer of Atmanirbhar Bharat. And in our industry, there are 3 important aspects of being an Atmanirbhar or self-reliant. One is manufacturing, one is sourcing, and one is design. If I talk about manufacturing, we started being self-reliant from quite some years now. When we started our manufacturing back in 2010. If I talk about design, we have started our operations in Bangalore. And the team is going to be self-reliant to design the entire mobile phone by itself. And if I talk about sourcing, that's where our biggest focus is right now. We are trying to work with partners, Indian partners in our ecosystem to procure more and more from India rather than from somebody else.
This is the final phase in the making of phones. The assemblage starts with an empty panel on which everything is put. The PCB with mounted components is put in this panel. It is followed by various types of holders, such as a camera holder, a charging point holder, speaker holder, etc. This process is followed by a QR code scanning to see if everything is in place. Multiple checks and scanning at various points ensures quality control and leaves no room for any type of error.
In our recent launch for end devices, we continue to follow the same philosophy of giving something which is beneficial to the customer at a certain price point.
After the QR coding is done, camera sensors or lenses are put on the panel in a closed vacuum chamber to ensure that no dust particle gets onto the lens. Then the battery is put in. After this, a second protection is put on each of these hardware components. The panel is then taken to a special machine where screws are fitted on this outer protection to ensure that all mounted components on the panel are fully protected. Now the camera is put on and colors are checked. And then the phone calling operation is checked. With this in place, the phone is pretty much in its final form. At this stage, other components like the charging port and touchscreen functions are checked to see if they work well. The camera is opened and various camera features are checked and evaluated, such as color of objects rendered, camera depth, and various other software features associated with camera functioning. In the end, a sticker is put on the back of the phone mentioning the IMEI code. This code gives a unique identification to every mobile phone, and it is through this number that any mobile phone can be identified. With all the hardware and software installed, the phone is tested several times to ensure its readiness for mass production. Then testing is done against various mechanical and environmental stresses or strains, such as the pocket bending test. This tests how strong the phone is and if it can bend on the application of pressure. Bending stress is the normal stress that an object encounters when it is subjected to a large load at any particular point that can cause the object to bend or become fatigued. People generally have a habit of putting their mobile phones in their back pockets. This test ensures that the phone does not break or bend under such normal use pattern. Similarly, the water resistance of the phone is tested by keeping it in a closed rain test chamber for about an hour. Afterwards, temperature and humidity resistance is evaluated to ensure that the phone works properly under maximum and minimum humidity as well as a range of temperatures. The micro drop test ensures that your phone can survive the numerous accidental slips and falls that's bound to happen to it. The front and back areas of the handset will be thrown from a height of several centimeters multiple times each, and then it will also be thrown on its other four sides. Each phone will be dropped a total of 1,000 times before it passes this test. Finally, the durability and strength of the connector is tested. A to and fro movement of the charging port with respect to the charging connector is carried out to evaluate the ruggedness and the rough handling capacity in the entire charging process. The phones are then packed into small boxes. Each large box will contain about 10 small boxes. After the packaging is done, a random sample box is chosen and a phone is picked from it. Then a whole series of tests and operations are performed on this phone to ensure that there are no faults. After the random sampling and testing is done, these boxes are transported and taken to different parts of the country. This high-end manufacture and testing facility ensures that the best product reaches the Indian consumer. The end product from this state-of-the-art factory can compete with most mid-range brands available in the market. It truly represents an Indian brand for an Indian consumer.
We closely work with government, and we welcome the recently launched PLI scheme by government, which require us to invest heavily in the manufacturing, and we are following that scheme very, very carefully. We are one of the selected partners chosen by government under the scheme in mobile phone manufacturing. Besides this, we are investing heavily in R&D, which is a part of Atmanirbhar vision of Micromax. ultimately we would like to be a true global tech giant and would like to have a strong footprint outside India and in India.
The story of Micromax is not only the story of a technological success, but is a giant leap towards self-reliance in the domestic smartphone manufacturing sector and a major step towards achieving our dream of an Atmanirbhar Bharat. But the mobile phone universe today is more than just phones. There are accessories like cases, headphones, speakers, power banks, chargers, and a host of other products that are purchased along with smartphones. Currently, the mobile phone accessory market in India is driven by low-cost imports from countries like China, Japan, and Singapore. This sector is growing, and it is expected that the mobile accessory market in India will reach 252 billion rupees by 2023. So there's been a huge move to push domestic manufacturing capacity in our journey to self-reliance. Starting February 2021, the Indian government raised tariff hikes on the import of gadget accessories and consumer electronics in a bid to give the country's industries a push. And so, many local players are working to develop accessories that will cater to the demand of the Indian consumer. One such company is UBON, a lifestyle brand that deals in consumer electronics like Bluetooth speakers and headphones, chargers, cables, and other gadget accessories.
We started brand UBON like 16 years back. We looked at the market. Market was having a shortage of the right mix of products. International brands were charging pretty high for the products or the qualities they were offering. So to provide the right type of mix in the market, we launched the brand UBON.
The company realized that today's consumers are on the go all the time. And so their vision has been to use technological innovation to create affordable products for the Indian consumer. They manufacture a range of power banks, headphones, and speakers. One of their key product lines is data cables. These are used to connect peripherals to personal computers, both to communicate and to supply electric power. These are of three types: the twisted pair made of copper, coax made of copper, and the optic cables which are made of fiber. Now, how are these cables manufactured? The process starts with beating the copper into wires, which is done in-house at the UBON facility. Next, a plastic compound called LDPE, low-density polyethylene, is put in a hopper machine and is then coated around the previously made copper wire. Then these rolls of copper wire are placed on a stand. Two different rolls with wire are combined together. In another hopper machine, PVC or polyvinyl chloride compound is heated until it melts. The melted PVC is coated on the combined copper wires. All of this happens in the same machine. Finally, the charging cables with the coated PVC roll out of the machine. A machine called the controller is then employed to check the thickness of these cables. Then these cables are cooled down by passing them through a narrow water tank. Water in the tank is kept at room temperature. Once the cables cool down, they are passed through a rolling machine. A connector and charging pin is attached to these rolls, completing this process. The other major product made in UBON are chargers. Here, the process begins with a charger actually being molded in a plastic injection molding machine. A plastic compound called ABS, which is a low-cost engineering thermoplastic, is used to make this outer case. The ABS is put in the hopper and heated to a temperature of 82 degrees Celsius. This melts the ABS, which is then passed through the plastic injection molding machine to take the shape of a precast mold that is set inside the machine. Next, the charging pin is attached manually to the outer case and is sent for assembling. A printed circuit board or PCB is then mounted in the charger with circuitry components like capacitors, transistors, diodes, and resistors. After this, the wire soldering is done manually. In some chargers, the wire is not attached but given separately in the product box. After this, the product is tested. Once this is done, a warranty sticker is placed on it. An additional plastic protection film is added before packing it in a box. And then it is readied for dispatch. UBON has an in-house R&D team which test all their products for the strength of wires and USB cables on various parameters. The chargers are also tested in automatic machines. Besides these essential devices, UBON is taking a leap forward and using innovative technologies that can free electronic devices from wires.
Future is all about wireless technology. We are developing a product by which we are developing a charger by which you can charge 10 different mobiles at the same time without connecting a single cable. So we are developing that type of wireless technology in India, and then we are developing PD power delivery chargers, and more wireless products are going to be there for the Indian audience very soon.
UBON has its own design studio where they design and develop new products and ideas. This has led to many firsts. UBON was the first Indian brand to launch ANC headphones and the first Indian brand to launch solar wireless power banks and speakers. Their working philosophy is to be the first mover and fast mover. Their aim is to bring the latest products and technology to various consumers across the Indian continent. Motivated by the vision of being self-reliant, UBON is the only Indian brand which is manufacturing data cables from raw copper till the finished cable.
Whatever can be done in India, we're doing that. We have got our own SMT units, we have got our own injection molding machines, we've got our own data molding machines. So whatever can be done in India, we are already doing it. For the semiconductor industry, government is already doing its best. We are expecting some big players to come in and develop some semiconductor industries here. And perhaps in that line, India is going to get more self-reliant. With the progress of time, we are expecting to make at least 98% of the products in India itself.
With the Indian government's push in indigenizing the gadget, accessory and consumer electronic products, there has been a big shift in buying cables that are made in India rather than imports. Now more and more Indian companies are moving towards manufacturing chargers and power banks. More companies are investing in the scientific know-how that will help them make affordable products for an Indian audience. And all of this pushes us one step closer to our vision of an Atmanirbhar Bharat.